So a few days ago, I was writing the outline for my series, which is... oh boy, it's that long. And since I'm a very visual person, as I like to write things out, I tend to like drawing or even animating to what's going on in the story as I'm writing it. So I really wanted to make an animation meme of this one scene that happens in my series. I can't really elaborate on it due to spoilers, but I suppose I could give away a few little details here and there. So 3 days later, I made this. The process was somewhat complex. You know, normally I would just animate in Krita and that's it, but this time I used Clip Studio Paint, Krita, and Blender. I used frame-by-frame animation to even 2D rigging animation. I'm evolving! So I thought it'd be fun to share my process of making this. Here's the storyboard of the first scene. I was originally just gonna have the shot just be this shot, but then as I was drawing it, I was like, man, it'll be so cool as for like the introduction to have this cool like 3D environment like thing as we like pan to the characters. So I did it, which we'll get to. It's very similar to the final result. Originally this animation was going to have a gun in it. Oh boy! Well, I decided to remove it because I thought it would just get in the way of my pan shot. Even though I completely animated it. Why is it not animating? Look at that! Pew pew! I've never animated a gun firing before, so I winged it. I probably should have used reference, but hey, this is what I did without reference from just my head. I mean, it probably looked better if I used reference, but it's fine. But I didn't really like the animation all that much. Also, the gun here is a 3D model from the Clip Studio Paint asset store, which is very cool. This gun really helped a lot with the scenes that it was in. For this animation, since it was a quick thing, I just wanted to use this 3D model. And the character who holds the gun, which you do not see by the way, their identity has been kept a secret for now. But like, I know in the final series, they'll have a more stylized gun as well. Using guns is sort of their weapon of choice. I need to have a very particular gun that does not exist in the real world. So I'm gonna have to design that. But for this animation, since it was just a quick thing, I just wanted to use this 3D model to save me time. As for how you can get this gun yourself, you can download it for free in the Clip Studio Paint Assets store. I think you need to have Clip Studio Paint to be able to download the assets for, well, the software, but here's the gun. It's very cool. Look at that. I didn't even know you can change the texture of it. The more you know. But yeah, look at this gun. It's so cool. Go give it some support because it was very good. It helped me a lot in this animation. There's the content ID. If you have Clip Studio Paint and you might want to use a pew pew, there it is. You can animate it in Clip Studio Paint, which is very nice. For this shot, I drew the characters here, which if you don't know, this one's Hoshi, this one's Aaron, and this one's Olivia. Originally there was going to be more characters behind them because, well, the scene has a lot of characters in it, but I decided just not to include them. You see them later on in the animation meme, but they're just not in the shot because to be honest, I could be bothered drawing them all. Forgive me. But for this shot here, I knew I wanted the camera to pan, so I drew Hoshi and Olivia in a separate layer than Aaron because, well, these guys aren't animated while Aaron is. You see here? They're separated. One thing I get asked is, how do I add lighting effects, you know, like to make the animations look pretty cool? You know, because I love adding lighting. I'm pretty sure it's like compositing or whatever, but instead of doing compositing in After Effects, which I do not have because it's very expensive, I just found my own workaround for adding fancy lighting. I mean, you don't really need anything too special to add fancy lighting to your animations. It's actually so easy. It's very easy. First of all, you add a gradient shadow like this. Depending on your shot, you can mess around to colors or whatever, it really depends. I went with a blue gradient because, well, this scene is very dark, both for the environment and, well, the content in the animation meme. Okay. Then I set it to multiply. Sometimes I go between linear burn and multiply, it depends whatever looks nice, and I mess around with the opacity. Then I make a new animation layer, or whatever, or folder, depending on what software you use. Clip Studio Paint uses animation folders, Krita just uses layers, which I actually prefer, to be honest. No, my pen isn't working! This is the tutorial! I bet you this pen is dead. I hate this! Why does it have to die? I need to get a new pen because my pen is dying all the time. It's really not good. I don't know why. This is the only problem I have with this drawing tablet is the darn pens. You see how it's working now? Okay. Alrighty. What you do is you add a new layer. And basically, let me just get rid of Aaron. There's two ways you can add lighting. One, you can use the magic wand tool like this, and you can just expand the growth. See how it goes inside the characters? That's one way, but for me personally it takes longer, so what I like to do is I like to use the bucket tool, and I like to increase the pixel growth, and you just go BAM! Also, you clip the layer to the characters too, so it's like this, and then you change the layer mode. I like to flip between color dodge and add, or add glow, or glow dodge, it really depends. I also like to go in and like add some like additional highlights, like how Hoshi here has blue eyes. I like to make them pop. I like to go over them, you know, maybe I might add some eye shinies. Olivia here, I like to add a little bit of a red because she's got red eyes, you know, and it makes her eyes really pop, you see? So you see the difference? Before, after, before, after. With the airbrush here, I like to just dab in a little bit with just some color, and there you go. Also, before you add the airbrush, I should probably mention you can like erase where you don't want the highlights to go. You don't want the highlight to go under her ear there because the light's coming from above, you know, or here. Just stuff like that. But if you're doing an animation that's very big and there's a lot of frames, manually erasing everything will take forever and it can look quite inconsistent. This one's a pretty good example. I like to draw in lines on a separate layer so it tells the bucket tool where to fill in and where I don't want it to fill in. It's very helpful, I definitely recommend that. For this first shot, I made a 3D model in Blender, but I did it in a very easy way that's kind of like cheating. Let me explain how I did this. Krita, I need you, please. Krita, please close. Krita, please just close the animation. I don't care about it anymore. I finished this animation like 4 months ago. I don't need Krita, it's fine. I can demonstrate what I want to demonstrate about Krita. As for how I did this, so you need to go to Edit, Preferences, and enable Import Images as Planes in the add-ons section. And once you've done that, you can go to Add, Image, Images as Planes. Let's import brick wall and the cell I use. Also, you need to change the blend mode a little bit till you're kind of satisfied, or else it goes all weird. I think you just change it to alpha clip, I'm pretty sure, and I think that solves all the problems. Anyway, you add a solidify modifier. It doesn't look too good if you make it too thick like that. You can really see the texture stretching. That's when you need to actually learn to do texturing properly in Blender, like UVs and all that. But for this, you weren't really going to see much of the brick wall, so I just made it a little bit thick. Just a little bit, you're not really going to see it. I tried to add the solidify modifier onto these like metal bars, but it didn't really work. And then I also added an array modifier like this. Look at that, it just duplicates it. I did the same thing with the brick wall. And look at that, wow! Amazing, right? And I also like flipped the cell here and I like duplicated it so it's like along that way, that way, that way, that way, and used the array modifier, and it really helped. That's how I made a very simple 3D background, even if it was made with 2D assets, and you can probably tell. You can tell this background isn't like the most amazing thing ever, but it gets the job done. I wanted to make something quick, I didn't want to spend too much time on it, and it's helpful, you know, it gives the illusion that it's 3D, and it helped with like the backgrounds later, because I just took a screenshot of the Blender background and I just imported the PNG in Studio Paint or Krita as the background for the characters and different shots, and it helped. It was great. It was lovely. I love it. After animating the background pan in Blender, I export the background as a video file, and I also export the characters as a transparent PNG sequence. I import it all in Krita, which is this. The background looked pretty rough, so I also blurred it out a little bit, and I also added some color correction to it so it matches the characters, and I also added a little bit of texture. I don't know how noticeable it is. A little bit of texture, and a few more gradient effects. We're also blurring out Hoshi and Olivia slightly just to have the focus be on Aaron here. And then I imported the Krita file into DaVinci Resolve to add some very final touches. And look at that, pretty cool! The second shot, which was made entirely in Studio Paint. Wow! How cool is that? I don't really have all too much to say about this. Here's the shot itself without any lighting effects, just the raw colors. I also thought I would draw in lines where I want the shadows to be, as it helps making the color process a lot more like tidier. I also used a 3D model of the gun. The same method I used for shot 1 really, I just used it here, which was a lot of fun, I guess. I don't really animate guns. I shall not mention who this character is, but if you have seen the first episode of my series when the original episode was up, it is now getting kind of reworked, which is why it is down. You will have seen him before, that's all I'll say. Won't say anything except he's being held hostage by the antagonists, shall I say. I don't really want to call them villains, as I feel like that's, I guess, making them seem like they're just bad and that's it. I mean, to be fair, they are very bad characters. I'll explain the context of this scene without spoiling the best I can. So basically, this character here gets held hostage and the rest of the characters are there to save him. And basically, our main character here, Aaron, the protagonist of the series, the main protagonist, to show the main protagonist, Aaron, and really the rest of the cast, that the antagonists are, well, they're serious, they mean business, they're going to bring harm if they don't do as they say. They do like a warning shot, which you don't see. You hear it in the animation, but you don't see it. And this is the aftermath of it. And well, he will get absolutely obliterated if the protagonists do not go with what the antagonists want. It's very dark. My series is dark. It does deal with some heavy subject matter here and there. So basically the antagonists here are like, that was a warning shot. This weapon we're holding is real. And the next shot will absolutely obliterate him. So you better listen to us. And that is why he's absolutely shocked. It's like, I nearly got obliterated. Oh boy, that's just fun. So this shot was made entirely frame by frame in Clip Studio Paint, except the gun here, which is a 3D model that I just animated in Clip Studio Paint just to save time. The background here is a screenshot of the Blender 3D model. I made 3D in quotation marks. It is 3D, but it's just made from 2D assets, so it's like, do you call it 3D? I mean, I guess it is, but anyway. The line art here was made with the vector layer, as the vector eraser can really help clear things up. I'll show you what the vector eraser is if you don't know. So you see here how I've drawn this line. It's like, oh no, I went over. You just select the vector eraser, and there you go, clean. So that's how my line art looks a lot more cleaner than it used to in my animations, because when I animated in Krita, my line art was very messy, but now it's a lot cleaner in Clip Studio Paint, so I tend to go to Clip Studio Paint for line art, and now I'm starting to go for the colors as well. I've really warmed up to Clip Studio Paint this past year, which is great. Yay! I use it more than Krita now. I also like drawing in vector layers because you can also edit the line art too, so I can like edit the lines. You can like basically simplify lines with the simplify vector tool. So you can see here how, I'll show you. So I draw a line here, and if I select it, you see how it's got all these points? Well, you can simplify it. Yeah, so you see that? It's a lot more movable. That's what I tend to use for animation and all that. I also like to drag and select parts of the line art and move them for each frame. But yeah, this shot was pretty simple. I mean, I don't think there was anything too much to really comment on. It's just fully frame by frame, which is fun. I enjoyed animating it. So here's all the flats. There's the background, the multiply layer, a little gradient in the bottom. I added some bounce light as well with the line method I mentioned, how you draw lines going from your character to outside the canvas to kind of mark where you want to fill in. I used that to divide the bounce light and the highlights. See here how I added some highlights on his eyes to make them really pop. And then our final gradient. So you can really see how these little gradients can really add to a scene and make things like more interesting. I had a lot of fun animating the expression in this one. I really like, I like watching like horror anime and all that. Like Higurashi is a really good example, like the original 2006 anime, as like, sure, the animation can go very off model, but like, oh my gosh, the facial expressions like in the first season is like crazy. They're so scary and I love it. And I like taking notes of how animes kind of make characters look spooked, as my style is a weird mix of like cartoon and anime in a sense. You can definitely tell it's got some anime influence in it, I'd say. But it's also got its more Western influences, I guess, too. I love taking inspiration from shows that I like, and shows I like tackle facial expressions and all that. Shot 3, which combines multiple shots in here, but it's just mainly shot 3, which is why you'll see later the shots are named like shot 8 and 9 and all that. That's because it also includes these guys as different shots. But anyway, this one's just really simple. I just drew characters in different frames. That's really all. It's so simple. There's some of the different characters you meet during the second season of my series. Some of these designs aren't final. I'll probably tweak them. For this shot, I did the liner, I did the flats, I did the shading on a different layer this time. Just because I didn't really have to keep it all consistent or anything, you know, it was fine. I add some shadows and a multiply layer. I also add this extra shadow. You can see here, it's just really cool. Then I add a little highlight layer, and then I add a little gradient on top, also the background too. I kind of just took screenshots from the Blender background and just put them in here, while also color correcting it too with an overlay layer. Very simple. I don't really have much to say about this. This was the last thing I worked on actually, because I just want to get the animation portion out the way. But yeah, this is a fun shot. Our next shot is also very simple. I don't have much to say in this either. So this character's Hoshi. Say hi. I have his head and his body in a different layer because they're just completely static throughout this little shot. Although part of me wishes maybe I just took time to maybe animate his head moving with his eyes, as I feel like that would have looked better. But anyway, then his eyes and his mouth and all that are animated in a separate layer, which again, the line art is using the vector tools in Clip Studio Paint. So if I go click on it, the shot is very simple. It's just that. I had this little gradient on top of his in the upper half of his face just to add more to the emotion. I add this little dark lighting here, and then some shadows, and I add some extra lighting on his eyes, as well as the background, which is color corrected and blurred out a little bit. Yay, this shot is very simple. There's nothing really much to add on it. The next shot of his animation was pretty complex. It was Aaron walking this odd perspective. It was very complex. It was a pain to animate. I used Clip Studio Paint's 3D model and I kind of posed it just to help, but even with it being there, I still really struggled with this one. I was so confident in myself because I thought I finally figured out how to draw shoes, and I was so happy. You know, it was one of my biggest hurdle drawing characters is drawing their shoes for some reason. I can draw their hands relatively fine most of the time. It's just that I hate drawing shoes. I really struggle at it, and I thought I finally overcame that struggle, and I was so happy with myself until I started to animate this shot. It doesn't look great, and I also I used like the lines as well to help me fill in the character, although I kind of did it weirdly with a bucket tool because you can see through the flats, but it doesn't matter, it's fine. I'll just leave it. I added the same lighting as all the other scenes, nothing really special about this. You can export your animation as PNGs and then upload it into Blender as an image sequence, or the image as planes feature, which is cool. This scene was a little strange. For some reason I came across this issue where any like PNG sequence I exported from Clip Studio Paint and imported it into Blender would leave this horrible white line around the characters, and it looked really horrible. In the next shot, which we'll talk about very soon, I managed to find out how to get rid of this, but I didn't do it for this shot or the previous shots I did in Blender. I can probably show you it from this like sort of strange perspective. Let me take off the roof. You can see how their like legs are tilted down. It's very strange, but it works for the camera angle. I did the same as the first shot where I exported the background separately. Here's the shot here from Krita. It was very dark. I kind of had to lighten it up a bit. The final shot, which is, I have a lot to talk about actually. The final shot here is not frame by frame like it originally was meant to be. This is actually 2D rigging I did in Blender. Beginning of the year I started to learn how to make 2D rigs, as I want to do it for my series to save time. I never really got too far with it as life kind of got in the way, and I had to stop learning it for a while. When I got faced with this shot to animate with the hands, I was like, originally gonna leave it as a static image, but I was like, that's boring, and I thought maybe adding some tweening in there, and I was like, no, it still look really like stiff, I think. But then I thought, hey, why don't I just rig it in Blender? Why don't I give it a shot? Give it a good old shot and see how it goes. I drew everything in Clip Studio Paint. So I drew this hand in one layer, and for Aaron's hand here, I divided them up into 3 separate parts. There's the base hand, there's the thumb, and there's the finger here. And I exported all of this on separate layers as their own PNG images. Then I imported everything into Blender. Ignore how bad some of the vertices are in these little things. And basically around each of the separate parts, I kind of cut around them as just as one rectangle plane, and it wouldn't work for rigging, so I had to kind of make vertices and cut around them just to help them bend when it comes to weight painting. I actually did this in quite a different way, because normally when I rig in Blender, I do it for a grease pencil because it's like all vectorized and all that, and this is not vectorized because it's a PNG image. You can see how you can see the pixels and all that, whereas if this was like a grease pencil object, you wouldn't be able to. But yeah, so I added lots of vertices, I subdivided it and all that, cut around it, and I subdivided it at the joints to help it bend. And this hand here of this character, I can't say who they are, but yeah, I really goofed up in the cutting here. It's really bad, and the weight painting kind of was a pain because of that, but it's fine, I got it done, just ignore that. I need to do better next time. If you're not careful, you can easily mess it up when you try and cut like vertices by doing loop cuts. Very easy to do. I animated the hands of bones. For Aaron's hand here, I used a lattice for the back part of their hand, this part with a lattice. As you see, if I bend this, see how the lattice bends? I tried to do it with this character's hand, but because this was all in one like layer, the armature here and the lattice were kind of fighting each other. You'd probably see if I bent, oh no actually, well, it was mostly fine, it was just the parts I had weight painted in here. Originally this was all going to be like a lattice, but then I wanted to weight paint the thumb and this finger here to like a bone, just to help with the deformation, so the last one built to do that. But it didn't work. They were kind of fighting against each other, so I kind of just had to weight paint everything. You can see here how everything is like weight painted, which is fun. So you know when I bend it, it'll bend and all that. Red means it's got the most influence on the bone, and when it fades out to blue, it means it's got no influence, so that's fun. You can't bend it too much or else it goes too deformed, but you can bend it up a little bit. This is the main bone where you can just do this. And then this is for their wrist. Bend their arm down, you can bend it up. Bend their thumb back a little bit, but that's like the main bone of their thumb. You can see you can bend this back. You can also stretch a lot. They're very stretchy. Same here, you can stretch their thumb out. All the bones can actually stretch like this. See, their arm can stretch really long. It's like, "Roar, I'm gonna grab you." You can see their finger is very bendable. Actually, let me turn off the deformation bones because it's kind of getting in the way. You can see their finger is actually quite bendy. It is pretty deformed though. You can't really push it too much, as you can see there, but it does get the job done for what I wanted to do. There's the backhand. You can also stretch this. Here you can bend that down. You can bend that up. You can bend that down. You can bend that up a little bit. You can bend it down. Although it does deform due to the really bad like mesh I made. My bad. That can bend down and all that. It can also stretch. That can curl up a little bit. The wrist here can move and all that. And this is just the main bone to move the entire arm about. So you can actually see, look at how complex this is. I'm getting the hang of animating in Blender, but it's very easy to lose track of what you're doing and mess everything up. Because it's very complex. Look at all these bones I'm animating. There's a lot. Although this rig isn't really flexible, it's quite limited to what it can do before it starts breaking. But if you wanted a simple animation like this, it's great. I only spent like a few hours on this, a couple hours, not too long to refine it or anything. I just wanted it for this quick like scene. But for an actual rig for my series, I'd have to spend like probably weeks on it. It's very complex because it's an entire character, you know, their head, their body. I need to figure out how to rotate it and make sure everything works well and it doesn't look bad and I can really push the expressions. Rigging's a lot of work. It's not easy at all. Sure, it saves time animating, but actually building a character is very hard. I was going to do a tutorial on how I rigged the hands, but for some reason I tried to do it and it just didn't work. Things were going wrong. So now I've just decided I don't think I'm very qualified to speak on how to rig, because I barely know how to do it myself. When I do it, it's just a miracle. But basically I'll explain. Rigging is hard, things go wrong all the time. I animated these hands though for some reason. Perfectly fine, no issues, but then when I tried to do a tutorial there, things were not going right at all. I don't know why. But when you get the hang of it, you get the hang of it. There's lots of really good tutorials out there. The shot was a lot of fun to do, but basically I export the hands as a PNG sequence with a transparent background, and then I kind of add a background behind it, you can see there, which I then take the pair of them into Krita. Same lighting effects I added in Conceal Paint. I used like the lines and all that, you can see here, for the bounce light and the highlights. I thought I'd add like a red gradient here because, well, this character is an antagonist, and like red is kind of like a danger sort of color, you know. But yeah, that's kind of my process of how I animated this animation meme. It was pretty complex, there was different softwares involved. And it was fun basically putting what I've learned over the past couple of years animating into practice here. It was great, I enjoyed myself. I really miss making animation memes about my characters, and I'm happy I get to do it again every now and then. It's fun. And after I finished every shot, I kind of just imported it all in DaVinci Resolve, matched it to the music, and all that, and added some minor effects, kind of just like, I added some fast noise for some texture. I added a little bit of a vignette, just to make it a little darker. I added a camera shake as well, so I play this, the camera will shake, you see there, pretty cool. Like adding light rays, you can see here how it really makes things pop. That's how I make my animations very glowy, and I also add a glow effect. I don't normally add a glow effect, but I thought I'd do it this time. Yeah, it looks pretty cool, I like it. And then for some of these shots, like, I'll turn off the adjustment clip because it slows my computer down a bit. So you can see here how I've added this like radial blur. I did this for all the things here, all the shots. I added a radial blur, I adjusted the position and the strength. I kind of keyframed the strength here to get this like blurring in and out effect, and I made it stylized. I just like how it looks, and yeah, it's very simple. There's nothing really too special to the editing here. I just kind of put everything in there, just add a couple of effects, nothing too fancy really, just a couple little effects. I mean, they help. They bring my animations from this to this, which is pretty neat. I quite like it. And I hope maybe sharing some of the behind the scenes of how I brought this all together was somewhat helpful for your own creative endeavors, I guess. Or just inspiring to see, you know, or just interesting, I guess. I mean, we all have our own different ways of doing things, and this is how I kind of did things for this animation meme. It's fun, compared to my previous animation memes I made, like, my characters at least, which are like ages and ages ago. You know, I really just only used Krita back then, but now I use, well, Krita and DaVinci Resolve, but now I use Clip Studio Paint, as it really helps with like the line art especially, makes it a lot cleaner and crisper and really nice. I use Blender for some background shots, or even just some rigging shots like in the hand scene here. I made this entire project in like 3 days of work. 3 full days of work. It took me from like morning, well, I'd say from like 10 o'clock in the morning to like midnight. I'll be working on this all day, so yeah, it takes a very long time. Well, it took me a little bit longer than I thought it would, honestly, but hey, it was fun. I enjoyed it. It was really fun. It was a fun project.